Orb presents Careers in Science.
This is Gary Butterfield.
This is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Orb, Episode 3, Careers in Science.
Yeah, we're getting into the thick of it here, again, with the reminders about how early some things start.
Yeah,
in this
we're getting
series.
into the thin of it in terms of pacing.
Oh, yeah. I've got a real fondness for this. There we go. I was about to say a real fond spot in my heart. That doesn't make any sense.
If you've got a cast iron heart, it makes sense. Get yourself a heart sauce. I like this episode as well.
Mm-hmm.
It has been very pleasant to realize that season 1 is actually good.
Yes.
Of this show, but it is growing pains, more so than last episode, I think.
Yes. Yeah. So this aired originally on August the 14th of 2004. And this is the one where they go to space. Like right away, they're establishing how super the science is.
Yes. Full of like 50s and 60s kind of wow vibes from the soundtrack to just kind of the design. This is Dia de los Dangerous is a funnier episode. This one is the one that focuses more on failure while still finding its voice in some ways.
Yes.
This episode ends up actually being a pretty big lore episode.
In ways that when I saw what they did, my jaw dropped. I was like, the balls on these guys to do that kind of retcon.
Yep. So in about a year or so, we'll be referring back to this episode. So download it, put it on a flash drive, and stick it into a special crevice.
Yeah, just
and,
put it
and hold on to it.
Put it on like 0.001 speed, and that way, by the time we get around to that episode, this episode will be finished.
Yeah, it'll just sound like a Godspeed You Black Emperor noise bed that happens in the background of you getting to that episode.
Life.
Yeah. This is the first script written by Doc Hammer. Ben Edlund of The Tick helped out with the idea, but Doc really wrote it. And a lot of the production detail we have about this and a lot of its kind of weirdness is due to that.
Right.
Doc did not know how to write a script. Doc did not know how to type. He learned how to do all of this stuff for his friend. And it kind of shows. This is a funny episode with good jokes and a good plot with a lot of weird cuts, a lot of weird pacing, a lot of just fading out. After a non-joke from time to time, just like, let's go over here now.
Yeah, let's just see what's happening. These two intercuts don't actually have much of anything to do with each other, but we need both of them to happen before we get on to the thing that involves both of these lines.
Yes. So it ends up being a real weird watch in the context of the series. There is a part of this is that inexperience in terms of Doc Hammer's writing. Part of it is they're still using Flash. So similar to using voice acting in video games, making quick edits was too much of a pain, so they didn't do it.
Yep. Flash is a terrible program to do this. And this was before things like Photoshop added the ability to have like an animation timeline or to do any kind of audio cuts. Yeah, when I read about this, a lot of stuff clicked into place for me. The fact that if they needed to tighten up the pacing on anything, they would need to basically re-export the file, go and make a cut in a different program, and then re-import it and then retime everything. That's a nightmare, especially in a 22 or in a 22-minute television program.
Yeah, that does not sound fun.
No,
to me. So it explains it, and as we they don't like this episode that much. The two of them, even though they would go back to it, make it very lore heavy. It is still pretty fun. It just has some caveats.
There's one section that is like 30 seconds of straight laughs for me.
Yeah. There's definitely a bunch of parts of this that are very funny.
Yeah.
To me. There's some kind of trivia around this. This originally aired as like a TV PG rating and eventually became TV MA.
Yeah, that makes
after
sense.
being shown in syndication a lot, and it's because of an audio sex scene.
Yes.
In this, which is really graphic, and does have a play-by-play by prepubescent boys. So if that's your thing,
yeah, if that's your
welcome.
specific thing, first off, there's like probably lay low for a little bit.
there's a website for you.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that is here. That is shocking that this aired as TV PG or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is a funny scene. Like it ends up, it's key to the episode. It's not the kind of thing that, you could get out. Reading about this in the Go Team Venture book, and reading about how Doc just wrote this to make his friend laugh, it reminded me of something. The foreword of Kurt Vonnegut's Slapstick is about how all good writing is for one person.
Yes.
Like it's like you want to make it because you're thinking of one person and you want to make them laugh or you want to make them think. And it's just kind of the universality of that is something that I don't think, I guess that's a contradiction. I don't think it's actually universal. Because the universality of it is not universal. This is what is known as a linear line.
Yes.
But I just, it is a thing in writing. That is one pathway to a specific kind of voice that is really valuable.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and you're a struggling writer, try writing something for somebody you know and like.
Yeah, cater
and
to
just
them.
be like, what? Yeah, will this make this person laugh?
Yeah, that is that is evergreen advice, and I think that a lot of the times, once you're aware of that, you can start understanding like what a creator's model reader kind of was like, or how close they were by what comes across in the end product. Like, oh, was their ideal reader somebody who like was generated as a persona by marketing, or like was it their wife? Right.
Yes. Yeah. And it makes a big difference in kind of the heart of the thing. And that's one of the things I think about this episode is that while it does have these technical problems and kind of other issues, it does have this like homemade kind of written for a small audience specificity to it.
Yes.
That is really charming. And stuff. So yeah, good app.
It's also
I
fun.
like this a little bit less than I like Dia de los Dangerous.
I think that I like it a little bit more. But that's just, I think that I might just be saying that for us to be on the opposite side of something.
Hey, if spite and contradiction, like contradiction is a part of human nature. So, and it's, and I'm saying that in a vacuum, accepting its like lore potential. The Dia de los Dangerous did not end up being nearly as important to the lore.
No.
Like, yes, we ended up having the monarch's false origin, but it's not like, Tijuana Professor comes back in a big, huge way.
Yeah, that like his role in the story recontextualizes major characters.
Yeah.
To substantiate it and to make it less like I'm ginning up conflict for the show, I think about this episode a lot when I think of the Venture Brothers, because this made a very early impression on me. I think about this one more than I do Dia de los Dangerous.
I agree with that. Like, I think that just it's in the rewatch where I'm like, man, I'm just noticing the parts of this that just kind of shunt forward with a dud.
Yeah.
And Dia de los Dangerous surprised me because I remember the first season being lighter on jokes.
Yeah.
And that episode is really heavy on jokes. This one is really heavy. Both of them have this, but this one, I think that this episode substitutes where Dia would have jokes. This episode has charisma.
Yeah, I can see
like
that.
there are lines from like Bud Manstrong specifically, or from Jonas Venture Sr. that are not jokes.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a thing to say delivered impeccably and charismatically in a way that causes a laughter adjacent emotion.
Yeah. Or like, it's like it's doing a lot of character work and development here, and I have a lot of affection for the characters too, specifically the character of Rusty, right?
Yeah, and that's the other thing I think that also kind of makes it like, I love the Rusty stuff in this, but I think it's before the Venture brothers could really bring their full weight of that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, what the other thing I'm getting to is I think the boys are kind of lame in this one. Like they're fun,
Yeah.
but this is still pre-boy characterization. And I think that there's even a little less than there would be. Like when I talk about things that are adjacent to laughter, like I laugh a lot about the delivery of the words Phantom Spaceman and Giant Boy Detective, but they're not jokes and it's not really characterization. It's basically United Nations, you know, and I have tons of room in my heart for that.
Yeah.
Like I think this is a good episode, but I think that's the thing I'm kind of noticing is that like a good Rusty story with still some of those holdovers of like, we have to constantly have pills be a subplot.
Yes.
You know, that they would eventually give up on. And then, but not everybody is fully there.
Yeah. You know, I think a little bit of that speaks to like the different purposes that the episodes were working towards. Like episode 1 was a little bit about like how bad of a dad Rusty is. You know, just like paying the kids to go fuck off, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like a little bit about how he wasn't necessarily where he really wanted to be. Like this episode, the function of it kind of is to show what a bad dad Rusty's dad was, what a bad Jonas was, right? Yeah. Like it's, you know.
While Rusty's a really bad dad as well.
Yes, well, also being a terrible dad.
The cycle of terrible fatherhood.
Right.
You know,
yeah. Eventually they would be able to, they would be able to tell both of those stories at the same time, you know?
Yeah, and they integrate them really well. It's part of what's really special about this show.
Yeah.
You know, I think that there's a piecemeal nature to this, both in terms of like its flow as a piece of entertainment and as its work as a piece of characterization that holds it back a little bit while still really enjoying the experience and then also really seeing the potential. Like I do think this lays a lot of groundwork.
Yes.
For that stuff. Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah.
With one of my favorite pieces of like recurring music in the show, as they show the slideshow for Gargantua 1 and Venture Industries from Jonas Venture Sr. And like, man, that's like do 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 like thing that they go back to. I adore. It was the DVD menu music as well, and it's a fucking bop.
I don't know what to call that kind of music because when I think about it, like I call it like triumph of industry music a little bit, or, you know, like 70s kitsch, like PSA music almost, something like that. It kind of runs into the kind of like smooth classical that It's Always Sunny has a little bit, but it has the cheesy vocal line to it as well. Kind of like almost the scat. Like I have no idea like what to call this music when I'm writing.
Well, also like the stiff bass. Like, dung, 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 you know, kind of like drum machine bass thing. So it's really unique sounding. But I way dig it.
Yeah.
But we're getting important background here.
Yes.
You know, in this commercial for a space station, and we get to see Rusty Venture playing with his toys.
Yes. And like Gargantua 1, we kind of alluded what this is. Like this is a space station that Jonas Venture built. You know, Rusty's dad. You know, so he is you know, this globe-trotting super scientist who also built the ninth wonder of the world. Is what they call it. So establishing exactly how big the shoes were that this little kid was expected to even just be around. Like who takes a kid to space?
Yeah, exactly. And that is subtext and text in this episode. Many times does Rusty just say, "Who does this?" Over and over. You know, and there's a great little transition here as, you know, he's saying, you know, future processing, and it repeats and is processed over and over until it just becomes a buzzing noise that Rusty has to shut up with a pill.
Yeah.
The movement in this in terms of pill Rusty, which is, I know I'm harping on pill Rusty a lot. It's just something that I forgot was such a thing. It's in this show,
both very apparent and extremely vestigial.
Yes. And here it is at least used to a purpose.
Right.
Like he takes it and something happens. And there's a good joke with this later where he takes it to banish an emotional moment. But here it's just like, got to make sure we're showing Rusty take pills. If he's not taking pills, people won't know it's Rusty.
Yep. So again, it is a relief that they went beyond this. I don't even think it's a presence really in season 2.
No, yeah, they get past this.
Yeah.
So they're in this shuttle heading off to the space station. Brock is trying to drive. The kids are fighting in the back. Kind of, like kids do.
Yeah.
And there's a great line from Rusty here.
Yeah, it was like, Hank's like, he started it. Rusty's like, no, I started it years ago in a moment of passion, and I'll end it the same way right here in front of Brock, Helper, and God.
Yeah.
Which is like a kind of grandiosity and specificity that is not usually brought to like the usual threat of like, I will abandon you on the side of the road, or I will hit you. Like, I will kill you in a moment of passion for annoying me.
Yeah. Yeah, I will fucking kill you. He tells him to stay still and don't say anything. And Dean says if he's still, he can't read his Giant Boy Detective book. He's reminded that he gets motion sick if he reads in a car, and he immediately vomits in his helmet.
Yeah.
Which Helper tries to wipe. This vomit looks gross.
Yep.
And zero G vomit.
Oh.
Why is it zero G inside the helmet? There's like G inside the
I don't know,
inside the cabin, but the helmet is zero G.
It might be there might not be G. They're strapped down, like they're all
oh sure,
seat belted in, so there might not be artificial gravity.
Yeah, it's hard to tell the presence of G.
Yes.
It's like a House of the Dead game. So
whether or not you're suffering, if it's like G did, yeah.
Is G? Where's G? Right here in front of Brock, Helper, and G.
Yeah. I love Helper trying to wipe the wrong side of the glass. He's trying his best, man. But I love Giant Boy Detective,
which will also become a thing.
Yep.
In the series, not as lore important as this, but is a running joke.
Yeah, it's Dean's favorite books. These little pulpy serialized kid mysteries. There's a fun like just in the art book, there's like a close-up asset of the back cover that has like the other titles in the series, and it's like
the Tiny Tower Mystery.
The Tiny Tower Mystery. I love Giant Boy Detective and the Tiny Tower.
Tiny Tower. The writers of the show really harness the power of adjectives. They know which adjectives are funny.
Yeah, that's dangerous. Too many adjectives, it gets purple, gets flowery.
Yeah. They thread the needle. We get our title sequence, and then them docking the space station. We're introduced to the crew of the space station, Colonel Bud Manstrong, and Lieutenant Baldovich, who walks Brock through a docking procedure. And this feels like a Doc Hammer joke to me in a very specific way.
Yeah.
It's this erotic, double entendre of the rocket going into the docking thing, and all kinds of, it's my first time, I'm gonna take it nice and gentle, etc.
Right.
Porn music pops up, and the thing that feels very Doc Hammer to me, and my favorite joke about this, is that Rusty is like, there's nothing happening diegetically, on his end that should make him think this is Brock getting his nuts off and like this is erotic, but it's like it's like this has happened a bunch.
Yeah,
he's over it. He's like he's hearing the porn music.
Yeah, it's like every time, no matter what, when Kano was flying them up here, he had to
if Brock is putting a cylindrical thing into a vagina like. It's something in the vagina like genre.
Yeah.
Then it has to be this like vocal phone sex thing.
Yeah. and he even like throws cold water on it, like, oh, it's like they were made for each other, because they were. Yeah. They were made by the same dude. And like and also that. Like they were. I mean, the rocket ship is straight up shaped like a cock and balls, Gary.
Yeah, it's a very erotic
the front, like the big nodule at the front is red, man.
Yeah. Brock's like, where do you want me to put this hot rocket? Patrick Warburton does a phenomenal job. MVP voice actor in this episode for me.
Yeah.
When they get on, they walk out, and we get our Right Stuff homage.
Yes.
Of them walking in slow motion to meet Bud and Lieutenant Baldovich.
So every time I try and come up with a ridiculously like masculine name to make it just for a gag, I accidentally fall back on Bud Manstrong.
It's very good.
It's a very good name. It's like it's harnessed into something elemental.
Man is a really it's like how I keep going back to Guy Whitey Corngood from
Yes.
Mr. Show.
Yeah.
Like there's just a couple names like that feel like they're Joseph Campbell archetypes that were just born inside me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just talking about Bud Manstrong and Baldovich, they're the only two people on the station. Manstrong is like he just barely has this veneer of being a professional astronaut man. Like he's tall and broad and has a deep voice and has dark hair with a silver line through it, but he is completely unhinged, just extremely tightly wound for a number of reasons that we're eventually going to get to.
Yes. It feels to me a little bit like this is recalling almost like Norman Bates.
Yeah,
it's like
I
Ned
was
Flanders,
gonna say
Norman Bates.
Yeah, it's like an Anthony Perkins Norman Bates thing going on. Just how repressed he is. Like he can't even like just say having sex. Like he is entirely dominated by his mother. We get a hint of that here, and it's laid out later on. But also, like, he grew up on this station, and he was traumatized by an event that he just like offhandedly mentions to the kids here in a second.
Yeah.
So he never had a shot.
A lot of big laughs.
Yeah.
From him. Let's talk about Baldovich.
Yes.
For a minute. So Baldovich has, a body for bedrooms, as they would say in Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. Body built for bedrooms. But when she takes off her helmet, everyone winces.
Yes.
The idea here is that her face is so hideous. When they did the character references for her, they didn't even draw a face,
right.
because they didn't want the storyboard artist to even have a temptation,
yes,
of drawing it. Later, there is a weird little hint in the Bonfireside Chat DNA of the show of what her face might look like.
Oh yeah,
because we find out her dad later invented the Mr. Mouth game, which is a 70s board game.
Yep.
And if you look up Mr. Mouth, it is this
like a frog.
Weird. Yeah, it's like a stoner-eyed frog creature kind of thing that you put flies into. And I can only imagine that he got his inspiration. Like the reason why they dropped that detail is that he either got his inspiration or this is how their family looks.
Yes. They're just like, we designed this to look like a person, but it's actually a novelty toy. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't put that together. I just assumed the fact that she is the heiress to the Mr. Mouth fortune was like a fun 70s reference.
There's another thing in here with Sharky's machine that just I think is a fun 70s reference. But this was, I felt like this had to have been intentional.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking about is Bud growing up on the space station, not having a conception for hideosity,
Well, it's also a classic monster movie trick, right? You never show the face of the monster. You never do a close up or anything. I love the comic timing of her taking her helmet off and then her hair poofing out. Like the fact that she has this like really wild, like frizzy afro kind of thing, which is not in and of itself like necessarily unattractive, but like the fact that when it goes poof, that's when everybody starts wincing. And Brock in particular is like, geez.
Yeah.
Because he was scoping her out. And also he was ear fucking her on the way in.
Yeah, they ear fucked each other.
Yeah.
They had a mutual ear fuck experience.
Yeah. But like otherwise she's like hyper competent and like a good character and like ultimately makes a huge sacrifice.
Yeah.
But just happens to be just unfortunate looking.
Yes. So as they're walking further into the station and kind of taking a tour of it, Jesus. I was thinking of Rusty having to pee. As they're taking a tour of it, Bud Manstrong tells the boys like a ghost story, a matter-of-fact ghost story.
And it's like
this.
Because the kids say, it's creepy in here, and like the inside of their suit is fogging up, like it's dark.
It's cold.
It's a dark, creepy space station with nobody on it. It's gonna be creepy. And Manstrong decides that it's appropriate to talk about somebody getting space madness and airlocking people.
Yes. He was just a paper boy here. He grew up as a paper boy here, which is very funny.
Yeah.
And he invited everyone to watch for movie night to watch Burt Reynolds' Sharky's Machine. I watched the trailer for Sharky's
so bad.
machine. It's confusing.
Yep.
Like it's really hard to tell what's happening.
If you ever wanted to see
machine.
Burt Reynolds star in a neo-noir made in 1981.
Yeah, Sharky's machine, as far as I can tell, refers to no such machine. It's just a collection of 70s cops are called Sharky's machine.
Yeah.
And Sharky might be named Sharky Vice.
Well,
which is pretty cool.
Sharky is a vice cop.
No, I know, but I think later they call him Sharky Vice.
Ooh, oh yeah, nominative determinism. Yeah,
yeah.
If your last name's Vice, you're gonna go out there and stop some. You're gonna run down some cigarette boats.
Yeah. And there's all these weird lines in the 4-minute long 70s trailer with a voiceover where it's just like, last homicide we had in Vice was a guy who killed himself. Really long pause, cut over to unrelated car chase, cut back to guy coming off of a window, and the narrator going, Sharky's machine. I have no idea what this fucking is.
Yeah.
Specificity of obscure movies is fun.
Yes. And also, it was outdated as of the time that this happened. This was in 87, and this movie was really old. So it's just what they had it's what they had on board.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I love it. But yeah, he had all these people down for movie night down in the cargo bay, and he decided to open the loading doors, sucking most of them out, implying that some of them survived. We see what happens to Brock when that occurs.
Yes.
A lesser man, and every man is a lesser man than Brock, would probably suffer worse.
Yeah, and this is where the boys pick up on Phantom Spaceman.
Phantom Spaceman.
They immediately name it and create a mythology around it in the way that kids do, which is very cute. The reason they're here, when they get to the bridge, Manstrong explains why they called him. The problem light came on, and it said, if this comes on, call Dr. Venture. The problem light is incredible.
I love it so much. Even before it was retconned to be something else, as a joke about just terrible user interface, terrible readability.
Yes.
It is the most universal thing. When I worked at the animation marketing studio thing, I constantly tried to work in not references or just kind of reuse this idea and that, and nobody took the bait. Nobody used it. But it's so good. Just the idea that you have a whole space station with all of this gear where any number of things could go wrong, and the only thing that you have is one light that is either oh shit or you're good.
Everything's fine. Yeah, there's a version of this that I think about a lot that came from something I'm having a hard time remembering, but it's the everything's all right alarm. That's what this reminds me of.
No, that's The Simpsons. That's when Homer imprinted on Thomas Edison.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. You're right. That is what it's from. The everything's fine alarm.
Yeah. You can't turn it off, good. But it does run out of batteries very quickly.
Yeah. Just incredible.
There's more to this than it appears, but for the purpose of the episode, as a piece of terrible UX, where the people who work on the station do not know how it works, and they need to call the son of the person who made it to just order people to go look and see if something terrible is wrong.
Yeah. Yep. I can't. And it's also foreshadowing Jonas Venture Senior's arrogance, right?
Yes.
I can't explain this to you because I couldn't trust you to figure it out. Just call me. And of course, my son will be a super scientist,
which makes you a terrible engineer. Actually, if you're making something that nobody else can use. Yeah.
He's not good.
No.
At a lot of stuff.
Biggest monster in the series.
There's a lot of monsters.
There's a lot of monsters. He does a bunch of fucked up shit.
He is pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
So we had a little payoff on Rusty having to pee. His little joke where he's like, and he's been asking for a bathroom for a long time. Everyone's ignoring him.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to enjoy the super freedom of space travel. And just starts peeing, and everyone looks at the big urine stain on his pouch. And he's like, what? We're astronauts.
You're not an astronaut. You're in space. They're very different things.
This is very good.
Yeah.
When we cut over to the troubleshooting, this is another thing I really liked about this episode, is the relatability of him just kind of pushing buttons and just asking if it worked.
Yep.
There's so many things like that, where I've tried to get something working. Specifically, this happens a lot when I've tried to get PA systems working.
Yeah.
There's a lot of yes, you go through all the obvious things of this, but every once in a while, there's just an unmarked switch on an old PA in our practice space that needs to be on for the problem light to go off.
Sometimes it needs to be on. Sometimes it very much needs to be off.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love this.
Run into that with any kind of like presentation tech. Like, okay, is it on input 2?
Projector?
Yep, a fucking projector.
Yeah.
Is it on input 2? Yes. All right, you need to cycle through a couple of times before it'll grab. It needs to be on input 2, but not this input 2.
Yeah, that input 2 down by Pier 1. Like, it's just like a very well observed situation.
Well, also, I love that the problem light is not visible from the command board.
Yeah. It's
which
really bad design.
Works into a very good a very good joke later on. So intercut with them doing this, we've got Manstrong and Baldovich alone, and we get a little bit of detail about their relationship or lack thereof with each other. They've been alone on the ship for 6 years, and Manstrong, he says, I've talked to Mother, and I think we're ready for this to go to the next step.
Yeah. He specifically says one small step for man, one giant step for us kind.
Which is like, they've been up here for 6 years. He is a completely repressed person. She is frustrated at the situation because she hasn't had any sex and like, oh, we're in a relationship or something. I don't know. And him just breaching this, it's bullshit. She's furious at him and storms away.
They hold hands and kiss cheeks and leave love notes, but they're not fucking.
Right. Which, get up on that 0G space station fucking.
Yeah, I know. Well, again, body built for bedrooms, man.
It'll get in the instruments.
She's got a smoke show. Both of them. Neck down, just like genetically superior.
Yeah. You can fix faces. That's fine. Yeah, there are doctors for that.
Sure. Yeah. Like, by doctors, do you mean pants?
No, doctors. You can fix faces.
Oh, doctors. I said there are dockers for that.
No,
like,
I didn't.
Talking about?
I didn't. No, just put some pleated pants over your head. You idiot.
Yeah, just dress up like Tim and Eric, and your face will look great.
People are going to be looking at your voluminous pelvis pleats.
Yeah.
They're not going to have
join Dovis PR, and all your face problems go away.
Yeah, no, there are doctors who can fix faces. It's the neck down that's the problem. That's where you're going to spend your money. Yeah.
Yep.
I realize I'm making that a joke, but as I explain my mispronunciation to you, it actually does sound like I am monstrously shallow.
I've cornered you into my trap to make you elaborate on how you think that there are some faces that are good and some faces that are bad.
Some faces that need medical intervention.
Medical intervention that some people are so objectively unattractive that it's a medical emergency.
Right. So some people
call 911 face alarm.
Yeah. Some people don't have worth until they, go to a plastic surgeon.
Your views are very clear.
Yeah. No, it's out there. And I mean, all of them. Yeah. But Rusty's up on the bridge. He's having them look for problems. As he is like just carelessly touching things again on a space station, he opens the cargo bay door while Brock is in there, exposing him to the vacuum of space and sucking Helper out into orbit.
Yep. Real good here. I love Brock when he's looking through this again over at Brock. This is a waste of time, Doc. No one's been down here. It smells like a new radio.
Nobody's opened these panels in 60 years.
Yeah, really, really good. Baldovich notices this. This introduces his wooing because or introduces Manstrong's wooing. Interrupts because Baldovich is distraught.
Yeah.
She wants Brock, hot for Brock, as you would be. And again, the way this episode cuts around a lot between things that are high action and low action in a way that the pacing is just fucking weird.
Yeah.
Because while this is happening, this whole time that Brock is out, we cut back between that action and then Doc troubleshooting.
Yes.
With, probably the objectively best joke of the episode of, where they're asking the boys, it's on, still
it's
on,
off.
the whole time.
Yeah.
And then eventually they start going, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off.
They're not
boys, that's called blinking.
Yeah. It sounds like they're disagreeing, but no, they're just observing at different times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really, really good.
Yeah, very a good economy of joke there. Yeah. But as he's, I love this line too, because, he says like, oh gosh, I don't have time for this. Your father's basting his own juices. Then the thing that I like is when he says, oh, I got it in my gloves. Just the
That's
idea
horrible.
that when he pissed himself in his like contained suit, that the first order of business wasn't like, hey guys,
He did a handstand.
but instead it wandered up that like, it is such a sealed thing. Like I almost wish that they almost like they would have underlined it and like people are like, hey, do you want to go change that? And he pretended that he didn't do what he did. The fact that he's just living with it is kind of a weird thing, even though I like the idea of the piss getting in the gloves.
Well, I think that he had been asked, like later he asked for a new suit, but nobody is listening to him.
Right.
It's this weird undercurrent of this because he's been asking about where the bathroom is and people are just not responding to him. Mm-hmm. It's like it's Patrick Swayze and Ghost or something. Like it's so I understand him not just be like, being insistent on what he needs. And you get the sense like this would never happen to Jonas Venture Sr.
Yes.
For some reason, or Brock or anybody else. Like it would not happen to anyone who wasn't quite like as Willy Loman as Rusty Venture.
Well, like when they're introducing themselves to Manstrong, Manstrong assumes that Brock is Dr. Venture.
Yeah.
And then like it literally like cuts down and you've got you have Dr. Venture, you have Rusty eclipsed by Brock and kind of like hunched over saying like, I wish.
Yeah, this is my man. This is sniveling little goblin.
Yeah. But Rusty cannot command a room.
Yeah, absolutely. So he tries other switches, turns off gravity, turns it back on, bumps his head. He's trying to find his pills.
Yes.
Here and hits his head. This will also be a little plotlet. Here.
Yeah.
Brock makes it back into the cargo hold, and he's like covered in frost, and like he immediately does a snot rocket.
Yeah.
This is one thing. He goes, I'm gonna go lay down for a sec. It's really good delivery.
Yeah, and the boys see this, and they're not like necessarily like they don't think like, oh God, our second dad almost died. They're like, oh, this is the work of the Phantom Spaceman. They're still working on going and solving the mystery. Like this is Scooby-Doo. So they go on their search and they see their dad. They see Rusty knocked out on the ground from his little gravity mishap. And they immediately assume he's dead and they start freaking out. I love this line. Hank's like, Giant Boy Detective has a dad who's not dead.
Well, Dean is like that because I think in response, Hank goes, screw Giant Boy Detective, which is a really good Hankism.
Yeah.
And we get our first hallucination of Jonas Venture Sr.
This is presented extremely well. I love that Jonas is gigantic. And I love that every time it cuts away, like in an absolute, like just a perfect like observation about dreams. Every time it cuts away and cuts back to him, he's in a different outfit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's saying all of these like adventure, if you had a Jonas Venture Senior doll, you'd pull a string.
Right.
Where you'd be, those locals look hungry and we're on the menu, things like that.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of non sequiturs here as Rusty starts dealing with what's happening.
Right.
This hallucination.
Yeah. And eventually, kind of turns into, Jonas blaming Rusty for breaking his space station. Like, I know I built it perfect, It had to have been you who messed this up. And then they get into kind of like a meta argument because Jonas realizes he is in Rusty's head. So he is only telling Rusty what he believes about himself.
Well, Rusty tells him that.
Yeah.
He's like, what kind of name is Gargantua 1? And Jonas Venture says, I thought it cool. And Rusty goes, no, I thought you thought it was cool.
Yeah. Well, and then Jonas turns it around on him as Rusty is trying. Rusty is trying to get out of being blamed. He's like, don't argue with me. This is you telling yourself what you feel. Pretty much.
Yeah. By your logic, you thinking that I thought it was your fault means that you think it's your fault. And then he switches to encouragement. And again, just the adjective game here. He's like, think Tiny Wonder. And just like the idea of a grown man being called Tiny Wonder.
Yeah.
So Helper, who has just been blasted out into space, is attached to a satellite interfering with cell phone conversations. They show a cutaway to a woman in a city walking around who looks like Augustus St. Cloud.
She does.
It's not Augustus St. Cloud, but there's just a little bit of like trivia reuse of a design. They would later gender flip this person to look for records by Sarah Michelle Gellar in Tag Sailor It, and then become also a major character in a weird way.
Yeah. The foil to Billy Quizboy. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah,
The
just
collector.
the idea that that Helper is just out in space as a satellite and nobody seems to know or care. Love that dejected Helper. So Baldovich, having seen that Brock nearly got airlocked, goes in to comfort him, and he brushes off the pain. Like, it's hard to tell if this is him putting it on for her. I think it's actually genuine. He's like, oh yeah, that's fine. I coughed up something the size of a little kiwi fruit, but it doesn't feel like anything's missing.
Yeah, so I think I'm all right.
Yeah.
And she starts hitting on him. She's like, what can I do anything for you? And puts her hand on his leg. He's like, well, you can start by taking off that spacesuit. And like, I love the confidence again, the voice acting here. And he's like, oh, I like it with the helmet on.
Yeah.
And they start having this TVMA sex. Here.
Very athletic and vigorous.
The voice acting is incredible. Just like, I love the idea that when Brock has sex, like, it's just like weightlifting noises the entire time.
Puts his back into it. And the boys show up and watch, and they think he's wrestling with Phantom Spaceman. Because the helmet's on.
And everything that they say is so good. Like, oh, it looks like Brock's. Well, what other weapon does he have? Pace yourself, Brock. Yeah, that's it, Brocco.
He needs his hands for other stuff.
Yeah, full pretzel bender. Like, everything about this sex noise is incredible. My note just says, I love these sex noises, Warburton. Just one sentence, Warburton.
Warburton.
At some point, he knocks the helmet off, and he seamlessly transitions like the sex noises to just like yelps of terror. But not stopping. It's really good.
Yeah, he's past the point of no return. There's no turning this train around. Yeah. He's got him on his knees. It's just a matter of time now.
Yeah, really, really good.
And this is like the start of something. Like they do this with Dean a lot, and it's mostly just they have Dean say something that is horrifying out of context, but only makes sense in the context. Like, I noticed this, it's like a beginning of season 4 episode when they're like telling the story backwards, and the Nazis hired Rusty to clone Hitler's dog.
Yeah, the comic
also
book
Hitler
episode.
Yeah,
the comic framing device. Yeah,
yeah. And just you have Dean saying, "No, I'll never kill Hitler. I love Hitler," and like he's just talking about his dog, but you have the kids saying these things that are crazy out of context. I like it quite a bit.
Yeah. Yep. So the boys are like, you know what this means, as they're just watching their surrogate father plow to completion. Yeah, just plow field. He's like, well, you know what this means? Phantom Spaceman is still on the loose. Just being single-minded.
So they're gonna have to go. Helper has been on his trip around the world. He has achieved velocity, come back around to Gargantua 1, and slams through the hull. I love the dollhouse cutaway shot of this, of him going through 3 different layers of metal in different rooms and stuff. And he ends up landing in a supply closet and emerges with a tarp over his body and a bucket on his head. Again, we get another Phantom Spaceman.
Yep. We go back to Rusty talking to his dad. His dad is like, oh, you don't need diet pills. You just need to work some things out. And Rusty's like, this is ridiculous. Like, you're my 12-foot tall dead father who's telling me this. As kind of an aside, I guess I always remember you towering over me. And as Jonas continues to give him a pep talk, Rusty finds one of the pills, pops, and just goes, bye, Dad. And just, I don't want to have this realization.
Yep.
I'm not realizing anything.
Nope. No lessons today, Dad. Yep. Just the cheerfulness of the delivery on that. And also the casualness of it. Later.
Yeah.
Drive safe.
It's bleak.
Yeah. Very bleak. So the boys are mourning When Helper wheels around a corner, they think he's the Phantom Spaceman, and they proceed to beat the tar out of him. They hit him so much that like oil starts flying.
Yeah,
And
it's pretty dark.
I love the line. It's kind of buried in the mix because they're both yelling at the same time, but you just hear Hank yell, "Blood for blood!"
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
Weird little trivia thing that I looked up during this. Have you ever looked at the voice actor for Dean?
He looks very similar to Dean.
He looks just like Dean.
Yeah.
It's really weird. It's like when there's that anecdote we talked about in the last episode where they like met the guy and they're like, oh yeah, this guy is Dean. I didn't know that they meant literally. He looks just like Dean.
Somebody in the Slack, I believe it might have been Gwen. I apologize if I'm misattributing this, but like Michael Sinterklaas was not necessarily like an actor at the time. He was somebody who owned the studio. Or like he was a big wheel down at the voiceover factory. He just like had recording space, and they're like, "Oh, you fit," and then they just brought him in. Like he wasn't necessarily an actor.
Old Dean. Yeah, just incredible old Dean.
Yeah,
show me something in old Dean.
Yeah. So all of this is going to come to a close in kind of a way too packed, like back 20% of the episode as we close the love triangle here.
Yeah. Manstrong immediately breaks bad and goes on like a bender, like grows several days worth of, 5 o'clock shadow, uncombs his hair.
Constantly twitching. Like just he can't get his words out. Yeah.
And he walks into Moldovich, and this is a shitty move. Like he's not, this is a shitty thing to do if you're a guy. Yeah. But he's like, how was it? And she says, what do you mean? He goes, oh, I shook his hand. It's all fat and stubby. He must have a huge mushroom down there. Does he have a Smurf living in it or what? And that is one of the weirdest, like repressed things to talk about Brock Samson's mammoth hog.
Yep.
That like, I mean, we're 3 episodes in, and 2 of which have had Brock Samson hog commentary from other men. And this is super weird. Like, I love, like, I shook his hand. It's all fat and stubby.
Well, the fact that, like, in addition to all of his mommy issues and his general repression and like tight woundedness, that he also has this like both the resentment of Baldovich and also this just real problem of inadequacy that he feels.
Oh yeah,
like
this is garbage.
They're heaping so many bad problems on him that you don't feel bad about what happens to him at the end of this, even if he does survive it.
Yeah, I mean, I did think that Brock killing him based on Brock's knowledge was a little bit much.
Brock didn't kill him,
but it definitely looks like it, though.
Yeah, he looks like
I think to Brock he did. Yeah. Like this is like space incel.
Yeah,
a little bit like
incels in space.
Even though he's totally a vol cell.
Yeah,
like he could get his mushroom smurfed whenever he wants.
He could have been going into it all those 6 years, but
6 years of nut.
Yep.
Fire up Sharky's machine. But yeah, he doesn't do it.
Right.
So, and this is a thing that dudes do.
Yes.
Get really possessive and jealous and gross.
Yeah.
And
to make a woman feel bad that she did something that he wanted to do with her. Yeah.
Yeah, that she has the total right to do. Like this episode is a little bit mean about Baldovich's face, but also she's right and she doesn't put up with any of this bullshit.
Yes.
Yeah,
and like she storms away and like walks right by the boys blasting Helper back out of the airlock.
Well, and they know it's Helper at this point.
Do they?
They're not. They're not still doing a fight. I think that they beat the crap out of him and they're trying to hide the evidence because they're really sad.
Oh, I didn't get that.
They go like, oh, they look to each other and go Team Venture.
I read that as them like, okay, we finally avenged our dad, but now our dad is still dead.
I mean, Helper's face is clearly visible when they have him out of the sheet when they put him in the airlock.
That's dark.
I took this as them getting rid of some garbage, and knowing that Helper can be rebuilt because he's a robot.
Disposing of the evidence. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I took this because they're so fucking depressed. During
their dad's dead, man.
Yeah, I know, but I guess this is up to we'd have to ask Doc Hammer.
We would
what the thing is.
Yeah. So, Helper's reentry has caused the light to go crazy. There's a dangerous hull breach. Rusty makes an announcement, and he sends Brock out to repair the hull from the outside. And Manstrong is there, and he's twitching, and he says, "I'll go with him. It could be dangerous."
Yeah.
So, Manstrong's going to try and kill him. And this is when Rusty notices a strange orange liquid kind of like splashed and dripping around one of these control panels. He goes to taste it. It's Tang, but he can also taste his piss because it's in his glove.
It's not Tang. He smells. He's like, "Is this Tang?" And he sniffs his fingers like, "Oh, no, it's just my own salty leavings."
Yeah.
Salty leavings is not a good descriptor for the smell of urine.
No.
Like, I've never tasted urine before. I know it's a weird flex, but salty is probably not how I
look at Mr. Fancy over here. Never mixed up some bottles on a road
Fancy over
trip.
here has never actually drank the forbidden apple juice. But so it's the smell here, and then when he looks at it, though, it's one of his cowboys that's melted across two wires.
Yeah, he opens the panel and like, oh, like I was totally right to blame this. I totally ruined the space station by being a kid up here. He just wanted to be a kid who was playing with his toys, and one started rattling around because he left it because he's a kid.
Yeah. There's a line in the book where like Doc Hammer's like, his inability to be a boy adventurer is what killed the space station.
Yeah.
And there's a real like running theme of this, not only in terms like, failure is definitely one where people truly do fail to do what should be asked of them and what they're called to do, but also a theme of this of people being put in, round pegs being put into square holes in this. And then the person doing it being upset that it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that continuously happens. Like, Jonas Sr. wants Rusty to be this, pushes him into it, and then is mad at him for failing.
Right.
Dr. Venture wants Dean to be another super scientist. And then when he doesn't, he's not as interested in it, gets mad at him for failing.
Yeah.
It's not just that they fail, it's that somebody pressures them into something and then judges them for failure.
Yeah. Because another person's desires are just an inconvenience to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sympathy in this show as well. So Manstrong is not going out here to kill Brock. He's going out here to have his like speech.
Yeah. To do the
I'll
other
trust you to
shitty
do the
thing.
honorable thing. She'll make a fine wife.
Yeah. You'll be very comfortable because of the Mr. Mouth money.
Yeah, Mr. Mouth money, which is a really great idea. And then eventually he starts doing the, if you hurt a hair on her head, and puts his hand on Brock's shoulder, and this is too much.
Yes.
So Brock destroys him. And the really good the Bud Manstrong protest, like, how inappropriate, rude, as this is happening. But I do think that Brock thinks he's killing him, and I do think that's a little excessive for Brock.
He wouldn't do this later on, probably.
Yeah. They talk about this in the book as well, like the things that they felt like a little bit like a checklist early on, like Doc's got to take bills, Brock's got to kill a guy.
Yeah, the kids have to do a go-team venture. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that being kind of something that was a bit of a shackles, and you can really feel this.
Yeah.
Like, I think that the modern Brock might beat the crap out of this guy, but would not just leave him for dead. Like, if it wasn't for Baldovich, I think this guy probably would just floated off into space.
Yeah. Where does the "if you hurt a hair on her head" speech come from? Because it almost always shows up verbatim like that. Like, I even had somebody, like, when I started dating a girl who had recently broken up with somebody, like, in high school, like somebody somebody came up to me and said, "You better treat her right or I'll kick your ass if you if you hurt her hair in her head," or something like that. Like, literally, like, what do you think I'm gonna do? You think I'm gonna hurt? What? Like where does that come? Like what is that?
I mean, It certainly came from a time in which hurting hairs on heads was just kind of more the style at the time, I guess. It could be more expected, and I'm not saying it, I'm not minimizing when that happens now.
No,
I think that it being the default, assumption
or just like even the sentiment, like, is it just like, I'm still going to lay claim to her, and the way you I'm going to hold you accountable for the way you treat her?
I think that the best possible reading of it is the idea that, like, I'm still invested, and I'm
care about her.
Yeah, I'm happy to let go of this claim, which is even just like gross language, right? Like, you don't have a claim, but let go of this claim. However, I really want you and need you and demand that you do well in my stead.
Yeah.
It was the idea. For a long time, this was my joke when one of my friends would start dating a girl and I would meet her. And she would be like, "This is my new girlfriend, like Jessica." And I would be like, "Hey, nice to meet you." And then I would put my hand on her shoulder and be like, "If you hurt a harm a hair on her head." And then I realized I stopped making that joke because one, abuse is not, it's funny,
Right.
but it's like, I thought it was funny, but boy, did it make a lot of friends' girlfriends real uncomfortable who didn't know I was joking.
That's one of those things where it's only a joke for you. Like you weren't saying that as a joke for them, probably.
And my friends would have thought it was funny if they weren't worried about the concerned expression on their girlfriend's face as I grabbed their shoulders. And when I say grab their shoulders, I wasn't like kung fu grip or anything.
Right.
I'm not, I don't, but it was just
a fun joke. Yeah.
Yeah. One of those things when you realize that, like, maybe if a joke is only for you and it makes somebody else uncomfortable, like maybe shelve it.
Maybe it's just a bad thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I retired that joke. The last time I did that joke was with Nick Glauber's now wife.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
So that was the retirement of that Gary-ism. So
no, I thought you were doing it to your friend. Saying, "Oh, if you hurt a hair."
Well, that's funny too. But that is also kind of grody because it's laying claim to.
Yeah.
No, I was trying to gender flip the idea that like my friend's girlfriends would beat the crap out of my friend.
Yeah. No, I just the fact that just like that sentiment pops up and it is such a part of a culture that like a high school kid would have done it to me, in let's see here, 2004.
That's such a high school kid move too. Like it's so funny how like when you're in high school, if you're a certain kind of kid, you believe like you have this conception of like honor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, I have to act like a man. This is how a man acts. And it leads you to say stuff like that is just in retrospect is one of the silliest things that ever happens.
I think a lot of really silly stuff happens out of weird ideas of what it means to be a man.
Oh, of course. But it's especially silly when it's like a high schooler talking to another high schooler when the stakes are like, as low as they'll be. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying the stakes are low or that like high school boys can't hurt high school girls.
Yeah, no.
But the idea of treating it like a climactic scene from a movie,
that's the problem.
Is just a really, really, unique thing. I had a friend who got really upset at another one of my friends and like punched him when we were maybe like 20 or so. And then I remember talking, is like, I'm still good friends with the guy. I don't want to name him. And talking to you about it and the profundity of his embarrassment about it, I think is really appropriate because it's not just like, oh, that was hot-headed, that was dumb. He was doing it because it was performative masculinity.
Yeah.
Like in movies and books and stuff, like a man's got to step up. And if somebody insults your honor, like that's what you do.
This is the point in the script when you would get punched. So
yeah. Exactly. Like, and that I'm not saying that there's never a call to punch, but the idea of doing that, I wish I could remember what it's about, not even just for the show, but just for myself. And I'm going to ask him later and be like, hey, what was that about? Because I'm really curious, but it was something that was just like absolutely embarrassing. And, people, don't think of your life as a story like you've read or seen in a movie.
It's not a performance. Yeah.
It's not a performance. Like, whatever cool points you get for doing something like that is not, are not real.
Right.
You can pay yourself in whatever fictional currency you want. And you don't have to hurt somebody else to do it. Just pretend. Like if you want to have a life where you pretend things, you can. Yeah. Don't hurt other people to do it.
Don't impose the fiction.
Yeah.
Like Manstrong attempted to do, and Brock beats the shit out of him and throws him away from the space station, which is a death sentence. So
it's a murder.
Yeah.
It just didn't happen to take. It's an attempted manslaughter.
Manstrongder.
Yeah, I was trying to go for something there. I couldn't quite get it. And he does die because, the boys show up. They see their dad is alive. Rusty puts on a new spacesuit here. And the boys are like, I knew you weren't dad. He's like, you big liar. They both believed it. And Baldovich notices Manstrong floating away, tries to grab him, but is getting demands of him. You have to apologize. However, the Venture Brothers drive away and blast him into the window.
Yep. And crack his like they crack the front of his helmet and he like just floats off limp in like a spiral. Like when I first saw this episode, I was like, oh, that's a really fucked up way to die, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
No.
And then the ending of this, again, when, some of the comes ness to it, is how neatly this wraps up, because the discarded spacesuit with the piss drips and makes the light go on, implying a cycle. And then post credits, Helper just crashes it onto the compound. There's no joke there or anything.
No.
It's, it's a weird kind of limp ending to this episode.
Yeah.
While still being, good, it just feels very neat in a way that I think that like later they would get a little bit more sophisticated about, and that, it feels like an early screenwriter's conception of a screenplay almost.
They talk about it like in the art book. They say when Doc was sitting down with Ben Edlund, it was like, okay, well, we had these two kind of goalposts here. We had on one end Rusty playing with the cowboy, and on the other end we had oh gosh, what is it? We had the way that it ended. We had it starting over again. And so you can see, like, if I'm stretching the story from this point to this point, this is kind of what you would get if that was the assignment that you were trying to complete.
Yeah, it makes sense as a thing. It just feels like
pat
TVE. Yeah, it feels TVE in a way that the series would cease.
Yes.
To feel like, which, but still, like, real good episode. I really like Bud Manstrong's vocal performance in this. I really think Patrick Warburton does, like, some of his best season 1 work. Yeah.
100%. Just the hallucinations between Jonas and Rusty.
Yeah, really good.
Good stuff. Bye, Dad.
Good heart content, that kind of like lays the paving, paves the way for stuff that'll be some of my favorite stuff.
Yes.
That happens in the series, including The Doctor is Sin, my all-time favorite episode, and my favorite Jonas Rusty confrontation.
Yep. Yeah,
because there's dick in it.
yeah, lots of dicks. So yeah, I think that's it. I don't know that I have anything else to add on this. We got more bangers coming down the line. Next week we're talking about Midlife Chrysalis. Fucking love Chrysalis.
I love that episode. Just a little production note. We are going to have a couple guests this season, just kind of intermittently. We're not going full Bonfireside Chat for people who listen to our other shows. This season, we will feature on a smattering of episodes. We're going to have Gwen Static.
The person who composed our theme song.
Yeah. And just, she's absolutely a huge Venture Brothers fan. We're also going to have Jeremy Greer of Days of Future Cast and Bonfireside Chat fame, and Zach Handland from the AV Club, who wrote Venture Brothers recaps and has interviewed the Venture Brothers and such.
Nice.
We're kind of spacing those out, and then next season we'll have repeat guests, but we'll also have new people. I'm trying to thread the needle of getting other voices and having the joy of sharing my enthusiasm for the show, and then also not committing to the logistical nightmare of scheduling guests on a weekly program.
Yeah.
Yes. That's while doing a network of like roughly 14 shows or whatever. So that is what I don't want to do, but look forward to that. Not on the first episode. I think the first episode we're recording that has a guest will be Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Magic.
Oh, good. So, the first appearance of Dr. O.
Yep. I think Gwen is on that episode.
Nice.
If you like this show, you can get it a week early, support us, and check out our other shows by going to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. We do a lot of other shows. A lot of them are about video games, but if you like us, it is the patina of salty leavings that we bring over different topics. So.
Yeah, the approach that we are bringing to the show is one that we have developed in other places. If you want to support the production of this show and the other shows that we do, you can go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. A show that is very similar that we do is called Unfilmable. That was initially a show about adaptations of Lovecraft stories to the screen. However, that is continuing as a monthly show about general horror media. Continuing in the Adult Swim vein, we're going to be doing a 4-episode series about Tim and Eric's bedtime stories.
Indeed. That is a Patreon exclusive show, as is our show Adaptation Decay, which looks at how video games have been adapted and features a lot of talking about cartoons and movies and stuff. So we think you would like those. You can also leave us ratings and reviews. That's very important when a show first starts, and tell your friends.
Yeah, we have a lot of reviews that have come in, 36 ratings at this point. Yeah, huge thanks to people like Evil T-Cat and Pluto Roman and the Mighty God Emperor of Mankind. I'm really happy that the God Emperor managed to make time for us.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, a busy schedule. So until next time, go Team Venture.
Go Team Venture.